My name is Ariana Briggs. I'm 33 years old, and last month I learned the difference between being broke and being tested. I also learned what it looks like when someone fails that test so completely you can't unsee it. I'm a civil engineer, and 5 years ago, I co founded a sustainable housing startup called Haven Works with my best friend Logan. We build eco houses out of recycled materials and green technology, solar arrays, rainwater collection, the works. For 3 years, it was brutal. We barely broke even. We lived on bad coffee and grant applications. There were winters where the space heater in our office worked harder than we did. Then last year, something shifted. A German investment group reached out about an acquisition. Not just some maybe one day conversation, real lawyers, real due diligence, real numbers on paper that made my head spin. There was only one problem. The entire process was wrapped in a strict NDA. No bragging, no leaks, no "you won't believe what's coming" posts for social media. I couldn't tell anyone, not the people in my life, not even the man I was sharing a bed with. My boyfriend, Nathan Cole, is an interior designer with a growing Instagram presence. When we met, he loved that I was building something meaningful instead of chasing quick cash. He used to sit on stacks of reclaimed wood in our drafty warehouse and talk about how we were changing the world, one weird little house at a time. Somewhere in the last year, that version of him started to disappear. He got closer with a group of lifestyle influencers, people who measure success in luxury brands, upgraded cars, soft launching their new kitchens on Instagram. His feed became a rotating carousel of resort pools, champagne flutes, and affiliate links for $900 lamps. The comments at home started small. "Babe, your car is older than my nephew," he laughed once, snapping a photo of my beat-up sedan. "We're going to have to upgrade your brand when Haven Works takes off." Or, "Everyone in my circle is talking about Aspen lately. Imagine us with a cabin there, fireplace, stone walls, the whole vibe, once your deal comes through, obviously." I'd smile, deflect, say we weren't there yet, that we still needed to stabilize, hire, finish prototypes. Every time I said it, I watched something flicker in his eyes. It felt like I'd failed an exam I didn't know I was taking. About 6 weeks ago, the Aspen talk went from dreamy fantasy to pressure. Nathan sat across from me at brunch, his phone face down for once. "So, when the Haven Works deal closes," he said, "we should seriously start scouting cabins. Everyone in my circle is upgrading. I'm tired of feeling stuck." I told him, as calmly as I could, that even if the acquisition went through, we wouldn't jump straight from warehouse stress to vacation property. We'd need to reinvest, build a cushion, breathe. He looked at me like I'd just confessed I planned to fail on purpose. "I just need to know if you can provide the lifestyle I've worked for," he said. "I can't go backward, Ari, not after everything." Backward caught in my chest. Backward from what? Our rent-controlled condo with mismatched plates? The life he'd happily posed in for the last 2 years? I pretended his words didn't stick to my ribs. They did. Then the rumors started. Someone leaked false information that Haven Works had lost its investors. A tech gossip blog ran a headline, "Eco House Darling Crumbles. Haven Works loses backers." It was completely untrue. The acquisition was still moving forward. If anything, things were closer than ever. But the NDA meant I couldn't correct the story publicly without risking the entire deal. My PR advisor begged to issue a statement. Logan was furious, ready to go scorched earth in the comments section. I surprised them both. "Let it breathe," I said. "I want to see who stands next to us when the lights go out." It sounded colder out loud than it had in my head, but something in me needed to know. Not just about clients or investors, about the people in my life, about Nathan. That night Nathan called. His voice was different, careful, like he was testing the temperature of a pool before getting in. "So, I read something about Haven Works," he said. "Are you guys broke now?" "We hit a rough patch," I told him. "How rough?" he asked. I stared at the ceiling. I could have reassured him. I could have explained the NDA, the real numbers, the timeline. "Sell the condo rough," I said instead. We were renting. There was no condo to sell. But on the other end of the line, there was a silence so long I could hear my own heartbeat. "Wow," he finally said. "Okay, I'll call you tomorrow, all right? I just need to process." He didn't call tomorrow. For 3 days, I heard almost nothing. A few short texts. "I'm processing things. Need space. It's a lot." I didn't chase him. I told myself this was part of the test I chose. I also told myself I wasn't standing in my kitchen, checking my phone every 5 minutes. Both of those things were lies. On the fourth day, I left the office after a 16-hour marathon of spreadsheets, legal calls, and cold coffee. It was one of those nights where you forget what your own face looks like without the blue glow of a screen. When I opened my bedroom door, I froze. There was an envelope taped to my bathroom mirror, thick cream stationery, Nathan's initials embossed in gold at the top. For a second, I actually thought it might be some dramatic love letter, an apology, a plan. Inside, the handwriting was perfect, not a single cross-out. Ari, I love you, but I can't go backward. He wrote that I needed time to rebuild, that he needed stability, that it wasn't personal, just practical, that I shouldn't hold this against him because we're all allowed to put our own oxygen mask on first. Half my closet was empty. His clothes, his carefully curated racks of neutrals and linen and soft knits, gone. So were his shoes, his colognes, the extra charger he always stole from my side of the bed. His keys were on the kitchen counter next to a bottle of champagne I'd been saving for our anniversary, $200. I'd stressed about that purchase for days. I'd hidden it in the back of the fridge like a secret promise to myself that we'd get there. He didn't even take it. I stood in the doorway, holding his letter, staring at that bottle like it had personally betrayed me. Logan came over an hour later. I guess my, "Hey, are you busy?" text didn't hide the storm in my voice. He walked into the kitchen, saw the half-empty closet behind me, and the untouched champagne on the counter. "That's how you know it's real," he said softly. "He left the good stuff." I tried to laugh. "Maybe he didn't like the label," I said. My voice cracked halfway through the sentence and broke into something I couldn't swallow back down. Logan didn't say, "You're better off," or "He didn't deserve you." He just stepped forward and pulled me into a hug that smelled like sawdust and cheap laundry detergent. We opened the champagne that night. It tasted like needles and regret. Here's what I didn't tell Nathan in that letter he left me to read alone. The acquisition wasn't dead. It was days away from closing. The numbers were already locked. I had let him believe I was failing because I wanted to know what he would do if everything fell apart. Now I knew. Part of me felt vindicated. I had my answer, right there in black ink on expensive paper. His love came with terms and conditions. Part of me felt completely gutted. Had I set him up to fail? Had I engineered my own heartbreak just to prove a point to myself? I kept thinking about that champagne bottle. $200 had seemed so important 2 weeks ago. Now it felt stupid, small, like a prop in someone else's play. The worst part is, I still missed him. I missed the version of Nathan who sat on overturned paint buckets in our half-built Eco house, talking about making something that mattered. I didn't miss the man who taped that envelope to my mirror and called it self-care. Maybe they were never the same person. I don't even know what I'm asking, writing this. Advice? Permission to be angry? Forgiveness for running a test. I'm not sure I had the right to give. I guess I just needed to put it somewhere before I lost my mind. And deep down, under all the noise, a quieter thought kept whispering. 2 weeks after I posted the story, I realized the internet is like concrete. It sets around whatever shape you pour into it, even if you change your mind later. The responses came in waves. Some people called me manipulative for testing Nathan. Others said I'd dodged a bullet the size of a freight train. A few said both things were true. Those were the ones that stung the most, because they were probably right. I tried to treat it like background noise, something I could scroll past between contract drafts and CAD drawings. But every time a notification popped up, my thumb moved on its own. My eyes went straight to comments that mirrored the doubts already living in my head. Why didn't you just talk to him instead of engineering drama? Honestly, you saved yourself from a gold digger. Be grateful. Tests are unfair, but so is abandoning someone at the first sign of trouble. I kept telling myself it didn't matter. Those people didn't know me. They didn't know him. They didn't know that while I was scrubbing our names off the internet, Nathan was busy writing a different version of the story. He was faster. Within a week of the breakup, little echoes of his narrative started showing up in corners of the influencer world that still followed him. Vague Instagram captions about men who lie about their success and red flags disguised as ambition. TikTok stories about a guy who pretended to be a CEO but was actually drowning. No names, no ad tags, but the timing was precise. The details a little too familiar. We lost 2 potential clients in 5 days. One emailed Logan asking if Haven Works was financially stable enough to handle their project. Another a boutique developer we'd been courting for months, called to reassess priorities. They never rescheduled. Logan confronted me in the break room, waving his phone like it was a smoking gun. "He's poisoning the well," he said. "You know that, right? He gets dumped, and suddenly you're some con artist grifting investors?" I stared at the chipped mug in my hands, the ring of coffee drying around the rim. "He didn't get dumped," I said quietly. "He left." "Even worse," Logan snapped. "He abandons ship and then tells everyone it was sinking because the captain lied. He wanted to go public, to screenshot, to subtweet, to drag Nathan in a way that made it very clear who was telling the truth." Again, I said no. "Let it breathe," I told him. "We're not flailing. The acquisition is still on track. The work speaks for itself." Logan muttered something about the work needing a megaphone, but he dropped it. That's when the message came. It was a Wednesday night, 11:47 p.m. I was alone in the office, staring at a spreadsheet I'd been editing so long the numbers had stopped feeling real. A notification pinged. LinkedIn. New message. The sender's name was Daria Lehman. Underneath her profile photo, Senior Architect, Sustainable Design Firm, Seattle. I recognized the first name immediately. Nathan had mentioned an ex-girlfriend once, years ago, in the vaguest possible terms. Didn't end well. She was unstable, he'd said, rolling his eyes. Super emotional. Clung to me when I was trying to figure things out. That was Daria. Her message was respectful, almost formal. "Hi, Ariana. We've never met, but I believe we have someone in common. Nathan Cole. I've been seeing some vague posts circling around about you and your company. I wanted to reach out because I've been in a very similar situation with Nathan before, and I thought you might want context. If you'd rather not engage, I understand. But if you're open to it, I have screenshots that may help you understand that this isn't about you. It's a pattern. Daria." My first reaction was defensive. The last thing I wanted was to be in a group chat of Nathan's exes, trading war stories like consolation prizes. But then I thought about those vague posts calling me a liar, the clients hesitating, the way my own test had detonated in my hands and taken parts of my reputation with it. I replied, "Hi, Daria. I'm open to seeing what you have, as long as it doesn't cross your own boundaries. Thank you for reaching out. Ariana." She responded within minutes, like she'd been waiting. The screenshots came in batches. Text threads between her and a friend right after their engagement ended 4 years ago. Daria talking about Nathan, about how he'd told her she had a lot of potential, but potential didn't pay bills. How he needed someone more established, someone who could match his trajectory. My stomach twisted as I read. He'd been a junior architect when they met. 6 months into their engagement, his firm downsized, and she lost her position temporarily. She had another job lined up, but there was a 2-month gap where she didn't know exactly how things would land. That was when Nathan walked. He told their mutual friends she was emotionally unstable, not ready for marriage, that she was dragging him down. The rumors followed her professionally for months. 8 months later, when Daria made partner at a well-known firm, Nathan called her, crying, saying he'd made a mistake, that he'd been under pressure, that he just wanted someone on his level. She'd said no. In the messages to her friend, she wrote, "His love is like a loan with variable interest. Great until the market shifts." I read those screenshots maybe 20 times. By the 15th, I realized I was shaking. I called Logan, put him on speaker, and forwarded everything. He went quiet for a long time. "Ari," he finally said, "this is like reading a white paper on emotional return on investment." "Meaning?" I asked, even though I knew. "Meaning he calculates whether people are worth his time based on their current market value," Logan said. "You dip in perceived value? He cashes out and trashes the stock on the way out the door." I laughed, but it sounded hollow. Fitting that my heartbreak comes with a business analogy. The office door opened while we were talking. For a split second, my adrenaline spiked. Nathan? A client? The landlord? It was none of those. "Please tell me you ate at some point today," a voice said. I turned. Riley, Logan's younger brother, stood in the doorway with a paper bag that smelled like heaven, or at least like fish sauce and cilantro. Riley was a travel photographer, constantly in and out of towns I only ever saw on grant forms, places with names that sounded like stories. He did a lot of work with environmental nonprofits, documenting climate projects in a way that made donors actually feel something. He'd told us he was in Portland for a week, shooting a piece on sustainable housing. I'd expected a quick hello. I hadn't expected him to walk into my heartbreak. Logan's voice crackled on speaker. "Is that Riley? Good, my conscience can log off. He'll make you eat." Riley raised an eyebrow. That bad? You don't want the full download, I said. I kind of already got the trailer, he replied. Logan called me earlier and used the phrase emotional IPO crash. I brought soup. He set the bag on my desk and started unpacking containers from the Vietnamese place down the street. The smell of hot broth hit me, and my stomach growled like it hadn't eaten in days. Here, he said softly, sliding a bowl toward me. Before you give anyone else your energy, give some to your actual body. It was such a simple sentence, but it landed with the weight of everything I hadn't been doing for myself. I ate. Between mouthfuls, I talked. About Nathan. About the NDA. About the rumors. About the envelope on the mirror. About Daria's message and the screenshots that felt like a script with only the names changed. Riley didn't interrupt. He just listened, elbows on his knees, eyes steady. No pity, no judgment, just presence. When I finally ran out of words, he sat back and blew out a slow breath. Sometimes, he said, the hardest thing about being proven right is realizing how long you were wrong. The sentence sat between us, heavy and merciful at the same time. That's the photographer in you talking, I muttered. Everything's a metaphor. Hey, I can do straightforward too, he said. Straightforward, this sucks. You didn't deserve it. And it's going to take a while before your brain stops trying to make excuses for him. He started gathering the mess of contracts on my desk into neat piles, reading the colored sticky notes without asking questions. You don't have to. Organizing things is my love language, he said lightly. Relax. Before he left, he walked over to one of our prototypes, a half-finished eco-house model, all exposed framing and visible systems. He stood there for a moment, studying the solar arrays and the gleaming rainwater tank like they were living things. Mind if I take a shot? He asked. Go ahead, I said. Just try not to capture the peeling paint on that corner. It's on my to-do list. He smiled, lifted his camera, and in one smooth motion, clicked the shutter. Later that night, alone again at my desk, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Instagram. Riley had tagged Haven Works in a post. The photo was our prototype, framed in that way he had of making the unfinished look intentional. Sunlight from the warehouse window turned the metal and glass into something almost holy. The caption read, "Real builders don't flex online, they build offline." I stared at it for a long time. It was only 9 words, but it felt like someone had cracked a window in a room I hadn't realized was suffocating me. Within hours, the post started to move. Shares, comments, follows from environmental accounts and design pages I'd admired from a distance. 2 days later, we had 3 new client inquiries in our inbox. One of them referenced the post specifically. I saw what you're building, they wrote. We want to work with people who care more about foundations than optics. For the first time since the rumors broke, I felt something like hope prick the back of my eyes instead of tears. Nathan thought he'd rewritten my story into a cautionary tale. He hadn't counted on someone else picking up a camera and showing the world a different angle. If this is what the test revealed now, what else is waiting to surface when the dust settles? The acquisition closed on a Tuesday. A gray, unremarkable Tuesday, where the sky looked like wet concrete and all the traffic lights turned red at the worst possible moments. If you'd walked past Haven Works that morning, you'd never guess that inside a 5-year dream had just become real. Logan signed the final document first, then slid the pen to me with a grin that was half triumph, half, I might throw up if I think too hard about this. When my handwriting hit the page, it didn't feel like celebration. It felt like release. 5 years of sweat and scarcity. 5 years of reclaimed lumber and sleepless nights and begging city inspectors for one more day. 5 years of wondering if we were foolish or just stubborn. Now, $5.3 million. I was officially the chief operating officer, a salary I'd never imagined, equity that could carry me into my 40s and beyond. Logan let out a long whistle. So what now, boss? Yacht shopping? Italian monastery? Villain arc? I'm buying back silence, I said without thinking. Logan blinked. You're what? I exhaled slowly. I'm not seeking revenge. I'm done trying to prove anything. I just want quiet, clarity, clean ground. Logan nodded and for once didn't joke, but the universe hates quiet. That night at 11:09 p.m., my phone buzzed with a number I still hadn't deleted. Nathan. I stared at the notification for a long time. I didn't answer. A minute later, another message popped up. Heard Haven Works survived. Congrats, Ari. I always knew you'd pull through. Maybe we could talk? Always knew. I felt something dark and bitter curl in my stomach. He always knew, right up until he taped a goodbye letter to my mirror because he thought I was failing. I waited 5 minutes, then I typed, "You left when you thought I wouldn't." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "That's not fair. I was scared. Can we talk? Please, I made a mistake. Can we meet like adults?" I didn't respond. Not immediately, anyway. Not because I didn't know what to say. Because I did know, and I wasn't sure I liked the version of myself who wanted to see him sit across from me and realize exactly what he'd thrown away. When I got back from a late walk, there were 4 more messages. "Please, Ari. I owe you an explanation. I'm going through something too. I deserve a chance to explain in person." Deserve. The irony almost made me laugh. By morning, something inside me had settled. Not forgiveness, not hope, just closure that wanted a face. "Fine. Same cafe where you told me you needed stability. Saturday at 2 p.m. He responded instantly. "Thank you. I promise this will make sense." It wouldn't, but I went anyway. The cafe. Saturday, I arrived 10 minutes early and ordered a black coffee. Bitter, no sugar. It felt appropriate. The cafe was exactly the same. Same soft jazz, humming from speakers. Same chalkboard menu with overpriced pastries. Same table where he'd told me my long-term goals made him feel like he was waiting for me to catch up. The door chimed at 2 p.m. on the dot. Nathan walked in wearing crisp white designer linen, sunglasses perched on his head, hair perfectly styled. He looked exactly like the man I had once loved, dangerously so. His eyes lit with something fragile when he spotted me. "Ari," he breathed, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thank you for meeting me." I said nothing. He took a breath, visibly rehearsing. Then the narrative began. "I panicked," he said. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just scared. Everything was collapsing at once, and I felt like I was watching everyone else succeed while we were stuck. I made a terrible decision, and I've regretted it every day since." He reached for my hand. I moved mine to my coffee cup instead. He swallowed. I didn't know how to handle the pressure. My parents always drilled into me that stability is everything, that you can't build a life on uncertainty. When the rumor broke, I just spiraled. "Scared of what?" I asked softly. "Poverty or embarrassment?" His expression twisted. "That's cruel." "It's a question." He ran a hand over his jaw. "Both, maybe. I grew up watching my parents struggle with money. It left me with issues, anxiety. I'm working on it now. I'm seeing a therapist." He kept talking about childhood, expectations, fear. I let him. Words don't fix character. They just decorate it. Finally, he placed his hands on the table, palms up. "Ari, I love you," he said. "I've always loved you. But I didn't know how to turn off the part of me that needs security. I'm trying. I really am." I reached into my bag. Nathan's face brightened as if he expected a tissue or a sentimental note. I slid a folder across the table instead. Inside, the acquisition summary, the sale price, my new role, my salary, the equity agreement. Nathan opened it, and I watched the story rewrite itself behind his eyes. Confusion, recognition, shock, anger, grief. Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. "I couldn't," I said. "NDA. You let me believe you were failing." "I let you believe what you wanted to believe," I corrected. "And you showed me exactly who you were." His jaw clenched. "So I was just a test?" "I needed to know if you'd stay when things got hard." He shook his head, tears gathering. "Ari, this isn't fair. You manipulated me." "No," I said gently. "I stopped managing your assumptions. That's all." He reached across the table and touched my wrist with trembling fingers. "Please," he whispered. "We can start over. I'll prove I'm different." I pulled my hand away, not harshly, but with finality. "I believe you regret leaving," I said. "I believe you wish you'd stayed. But I also believe the next time things get difficult, you'd make the same choice." I stood. "Ari, please." "Goodbye, Nathan." I walked out. The photo. Outside, the air felt too bright, too sharp. Across the street, a small photography exhibition tent was set up for the Portland Green Expo. Riley stood there, camera in hand, adjusting a lens. He hadn't seen me yet. For a moment, I watched him, focused, present, grounded. No theatrics, no performance, no calculations. Just someone who showed up when the lights went off. When he looked up, he grinned and waved. I waved back. Later that night, a notification buzzed on my phone. It was a post from Riley. A candid photo snapped through the cafe window. Nathan sitting alone, staring at the folder on the table, sunlight streaking across his face like a spotlight on a final act. The caption read, "Some people only love the light after it stops shining on them." The image spread quietly online, people sharing it as a metaphor, a warning, a lesson. No names, no tags, just truth wrapped in artistry. I thought that would be the end of it. I didn't know that Nathan's world was about to collapse in ways that had nothing to do with me, and everything to do with who he'd always been. I thought the cafe meeting was closure. I thought the folder, the confession, the walkout, that was the full circle. Turns out that was only the prologue. 3 days later, I got a link from a colleague. No message, just the URL, and a single underneath it. I clicked, and there he was. Nathan Cole, front page of a local design community forum. Headline, Designer caught in greenwashing scandal, clients claim fraud. My heart didn't race, didn't drop. It just stilled. The article described a small nonprofit in Portland that Nathan's firm had worked with, a group focused on environmental education. They had hired Nathan's team to renovate their office using sustainable materials. Simple, inspiring, exactly the kind of story he loved to attach to his brand. But the nonprofit had discovered invoices that didn't match reality. Nathan's firm had billed them for high-end eco-friendly products and installed cheaper, conventional materials instead. The difference, pocketed. But the part that made my stomach turn wasn't the money. It was the quote from the nonprofit director. We believed we were partnering with someone who shared our values. Instead, we were used as a marketing prop. Within hours, 3 other clients came forward with similar stories. By evening, a local news site picked it up. Sustainability influencer under fire for deceptive practices. The comments were brutal. The influencer community, where Nathan once shined, fell silent. You could smell the distancing through the screen. No statements, no explanations, no beautifully lit Instagram stories with text on a beige background. Just silence. The kind of silence that isn't peaceful, the kind that drowns. While Nathan's world was crumbling, Haven Works was, ironically, thriving. Riley's photo from the expo had gained traction with environmental journals. Design magazines reached out requesting interviews. 3 veteran housing programs contacted us, asking if we'd collaborate on eco-friendly shelters. Riley was in our office almost daily, camera slung over one shoulder, wearing shirts that looked like he'd ironed them by tossing them near a humidifier. He brought pastries in the mornings and Vietnamese iced coffee when I worked late. He had this way of being present without hovering. Unintrusive, but unmistakably there. After the scandal broke, he didn't bring it up at first. He just slid a bowl of pho toward me and said, "You didn't cause that collapse." Then, after a beat, he was already falling. You just stopped cushioning the landing. About 2 weeks after the acquisition, Riley asked if I wanted to help scout locations for a documentary he was planning on green housing. It was a 3-day trip up the coast, in the rain, camping. Old Ariana would have said no. New Ariana packed her waterproof boots and left a note on Logan's desk that said, "Gone to find perspective, don't burn anything." It rained nonstop those 3 days. The kind of rain that soaks your socks through your shoes, no matter how expensive they are. The kind that sweeps your hair into chaotic curls and forces you to laugh at the futility of looking put together. We slept in a tent that leaked at the corners, cooked noodles on a portable stove, and talked for hours about values, about burnout, about what it means to build something real in a world obsessed with the illusion of sustainability. On the second night, sitting under a tarp while rain hammered around us, Riley told me, "You spend so much time holding the roof up for everyone else. Doesn't it get heavy?" "I don't know how to put it down," I admitted. He nodded once, like he understood too well. "Then maybe," he said quietly, "you don't need someone to stand under it with you. Maybe you need someone who helps hold it up." For the first time in months, something inside me eased. Not healed, just loosened. Not romance, not yet, but warmth, steady and unforced, like the first sun after a long winter. Meanwhile, back home, Nathan's scandal worsened. His business partner threw him under the bus in a panicked statement, blaming him for the cost-cutting schemes. Anonymous emails leaked, showing Nathan had pushed the idea weeks before the nonprofit job. His brand partnerships dropped him. His Instagram following plummeted. He closed comments on all posts. And still, nothing from him. Not one apology, not one acknowledgement. Just an influencer caught in the spotlight without makeup on. When I returned from the trip, Logan greeted me with a stack of new contracts in one hand and a cup of burnt office coffee in the other. "You look weirdly rested," he said, eyeing me suspiciously. "Did you two even work?" "We scouted," I corrected. "Uh-huh. Scouted each other's souls or whatever." I rolled my eyes. It wasn't like that. Logan leaned back in his chair. It doesn't have to be like anything yet. But I'll say this, Riley shows up. When things suck, he's there. Nathan, he bailed the second he thought you weren't profitable. He paused. Good people don't vanish when your value dips. I didn't respond, but his words echoed deep. One night, I sat alone reviewing blueprints, thinking about the past few months. Riley's laughter during the storm, Daria's messages, Nathan's letter, the envelope taped to my mirror, the champagne bottle he didn't take, the viral Real Builders post. It struck me how messy truth is, how it never arrives all at once, but in fragments, like shards of a mirror you're too scared to reassemble because you're afraid of the face you'll see. I thought the worst was over. I thought the revelations had finished. But healing isn't linear, and neither is justice. Because the next morning, sitting on my doorstep, was an envelope with handwriting I recognized instantly. Charles Cole, Nathan's father. And nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what was inside. The envelope was thick, old-fashioned, the kind of stationery people only use for wedding invitations or condolences. My name, Ariana Briggs, was written in neat, deliberate penmanship across the front. Not looping or dramatic like Nathan's handwriting. Measured, controlled. I knew instantly who it was from. Charles Cole, Nathan's father, a man I had spoken to maybe 5 times in total. My stomach pulled tight. For a second, I considered not opening it. Nothing good ever arrives in an envelope like this. It's either an apology you don't want, or a request you'll regret answering. But curiosity, that old unreliable compass of mine, won. I slid a finger beneath the seal and unfolded the letter. It began simply, Ariana, I owe you an apology. I sat down. Charles explained that after Nathan and I broke up, his son had told them a very specific story, that I had lied to him about Havenworks' financial situation, that I'd stolen investor money, that I'd mismanaged the company into near collapse, that he had no choice but to leave to protect himself. Charles wrote that he and his wife believed him, and not only believed him, they supported Nathan telling his friends and colleagues the truth. My pulse thudded in my ears. A month ago, the letter continued, I ran into Logan at a business event. He congratulated me on you and Ariana finalizing the acquisition. I thought he was joking. He described how, politely and without realizing the weight of his words, Logan walked Charles through the entire timeline, the NDA, the false rumors, the sale, my new role. Charles wrote, I realized then that only one of you could be telling the truth, and it wasn't my son. He confronted Nathan that evening. It was a brutal conversation, he said. Nathan denied everything, then crumbled, then admitted pieces, then tried to shift blame, until the story snapped under its own contradictions. And then came the part of the letter I didn't expect. When I asked him about the accusations from the nonprofit clients, he broke down completely. Nathan had told his parents nothing about the investigation, the greenwashing scandal, or the pending lawsuits. He'd claimed the haters were out to get him. He'd lied again, and again, and again. But Charles didn't write to defend him. He wrote to take responsibility. Charles confessed that he had spent years pushing Nathan toward financial achievement, toward success, respectability, upward mobility. He had taught him that stability was everything, that security mattered more than passion, that you measure a person's worth by their results. I thought I was teaching him survival, he wrote. Instead, I may have taught him to see people as stepping stones. There was no self-pity in the letter, just the quiet devastation of a father realizing he had raised a man afraid of falling behind, even if it meant stepping on others. My throat tightened. Then came the part that broke me open a little. You showed my son more grace than he deserved. And when you could have destroyed him publicly, you chose not to. That restraint is rare. I am grateful. I stared at the words until they blurred. I never wanted to hurt Nathan. I just wanted clarity, truth, a clean break. But somehow the universe had decided I deserved this acknowledgement, this closure, this strange, unexpected mirror held up by a man who barely knew me. The letter ended with something even more surprising. I researched Havenworks after learning the truth. What you and Logan are building is meaningful. I have made a personal donation to your veteran housing initiative, and I have begun recommending your company to my firm's clients. My breath caught. This wasn't pity, or guilt money, or an attempt to smooth things over. It was respect, given freely, without strings attached. The final lines were simple. I am not asking you to forgive Nathan. I wouldn't if I were you. I simply wanted you to know the full story, and to thank you for showing integrity where my son did not. Charles Cole. I placed the letter on the table, hands trembling, feeling something loosen in my chest that I didn't know had been clenched. It wasn't vindication. It wasn't revenge. It was something gentler. Release. That evening, I brought the letter to the office where Riley was editing photos for a magazine feature. He looked up when I walked in, saw my expression, and gently took the pages from my hands. He read the entire letter without speaking. Then he set it down, leaned back, and said, "Sometimes the people who hurt us give us the greatest gifts without intending to." I frowned. "What gift?" He gestured around the room. "Haven works thriving. Your reputation speaking louder than rumors. People seeing who you are when nothing glittery is attached. And you, finally free from measuring yourself against someone else's panic." His eyes softened. "And look who you're building with now." There was a quiet between us. Not awkward, not heavy. Just real. Logan read the letter later and shook his head. "Balance sheets always find a way to even out," he said. "People who measure worth in dollars eventually get measured the same way, and those numbers never add up." He clapped me on the shoulder. "You, on the other hand, you're in the black." In the weeks that followed, Portland Monthly did a feature on Haven Works titled "The Woman Who Built Peace Instead of Proving a Point." Riley's photos were published across environmental media. We signed partnerships in 2 new states. Daria emailed me. "Saw the article. Proud of you for getting out early." And somewhere in that whirlwind, Riley and I shifted from colleagues to something more. Not in a dramatic kiss in the rain moment. Not in a movie crescendo. It was slow, natural, a hand hovering at the small of my back during site visits, shared meals on the road, long conversations where we forgot what time it was. He showed up when things were chaotic, when I was messy, when I wasn't profitable. I didn't realize what it meant until one evening, while reviewing documents side by side, he brushed a strand of hair behind my ear and said, "You don't have to carry every beam alone." And I let him stay. Someone from my original anonymous post once asked if I regretted testing Nathan. After everything, the envelope, the rumors, the scandal, the letter, the rebuild, the quiet triumphs, the gentle beginnings with Riley, I finally knew the answer. No, I didn't regret the test. I only regretted that he failed it. Because I wasn't testing whether he wanted luxury. I was testing whether he understood partnership, commitment, resilience, character. And I learned the truth before we built a life that would have been harder and more heartbreaking to untangle. Nathan wanted someone on his level. What he meant was someone who measured worth the same way he did. Net worth, social status, appearances. Those are valid metrics, I suppose, but they aren't mine. My level is measured by whether I can sleep knowing I built something honest, whether the people I work with trust me, whether the man beside me stays when the lights go out. And by those measurements, I'm not just fine. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.